Hello and welcome once again to another edition of the Flag Hunters Golf Podcast. My name is Jesse Perryman. I am your host, along with my co-host, Justin Tang, one of the great instructors in the world, a lifelong seeker, and someone that you really want to pay attention to. And this week, our guest is Greg Jones. He is in Alabama, longtime coach, former D1 golf coach, and his story will certainly help you and inspire you to inquire. Greg, thanks for coming on. Justin, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Thank you, gents. So, Greg, can you share with our listeners how you got into golf, out of golf, and then back into golf?
Oh, yeah, that's a good story. Well, I my earliest memories of golf, I was 4 or 5 years old. My dad learned to play in the Army, and he ultimately became a longtime scratch golfer. He taught me golf at a young age, and I played every sport. And at about age 13, I just decided to go all into golf. Played high school golf. I played college golf, 6 years of pro golf, and then became a D1 head coach for 12 years. And then after that 12 years, I was actually a State Farm insurance agent for 10. And then in 2018, decided that my gift, my passion, and my talent, my platform is in golf, and came back to full-time private coaching.
So, can you walk us through a little bit of your college and pro golf days?
Well, at college, I started off at the University of Kentucky, and I'm an Alabama boy where we wear shorts pretty much year round. And I'll never forget my freshman year at the University of Kentucky. It snowed on April the 24th. And when I woke up that morning, I looked out the blinds and I said, no wonder they're so good at basketball because it's still snowing here in April. So I decided that Kentucky wasn't for me. A beautiful place, love the university, but I wanted a little more year-round, better weather. And so I was trying to transfer from the University of Kentucky to Auburn. And back then you had to sit out a year. There was no such thing as NIL, transfer portal, get paid to transfer. And even in golf, you had to sit out a year. Well, I didn't want to sit out a year. And the Auburn coach sent me down to Florida to play for a man by the name of Floyd Horgan at Brevard Community College. Now, Floyd Horgan was Hal Sutton's college coach. Mr. Sutton wanted Floyd to be Hal's college coach, and he basically made Floyd an offer and the university an offer that they couldn't refuse for Floyd to come be Hal Sutton's coach in college. And so I was very blessed to play for Floyd Horgan. We had Scott Gump, Steve LaMontagne. He coached Bo Ball, Mike Smith, Paul Azinger, many others. And Floyd Horgan was just a fantastic, fantastic swing coach. I was pretty good when I went down there. And when I came back from Florida back to Alabama, they didn't recognize me. What he did for me was just unbelievable, and taught me so much golf swing, rebuilt my swing, and made it really good. And then my Auburn didn't work out, so I wound up back home here at the University of South Alabama. And in my junior year, I think I won 4 times. And back then there were no regionals. You just went straight to the NCAA championship. And so I got picked as an individual to go straight to the NCAA championship and played the final round with Steve Stricker. So that was, so I was, pretty good. I was a Sun Bowl All-American, like a preseason All-American that year, and then played one more year, and then played some pro golf for about 6 years. Got really close to making the tour. I made it through first stage. Was on the bubble, second stage going into the final round, and played with a tall, lanky guy that nobody had ever heard of back then by the name of Ernie Els, and at tour school. And I'll never forget warming up next to him. And I didn't know who he was. Nobody knew who he was then. And I was just hitting some little like wedge shots. And by this time he was hitting full irons. And I just went, whoa, that's really different. Like, I've seen a lot of good golf, but that's really different. And sure enough, that was Ernie Els. So I'm kind of dating myself there. But, you know, I tell this story because you just never know how hard it is to get on tour. There's a lot of great players that never make it because of the qualifying schools. But in that final round, my second shot on both of the par fives on the back nine made a ball mark. They landed on the green, and I turned those two holes into a 6 and a 5 and missed by one, making it to finals. And I just think, I hit the shot. I hit the shot. They made a ball mark on the green, and they both skipped over, one back left and one straight away behind the green. And I turned them into a 6 and a 5 instead of a 4 and a 4 or a 4 and a 5 or a 5 and a 5. And missed by one, making it to finals, and then never made it after that. So kind of played the mini tours for a while, and then got hired at the University of South Alabama to be a golf coach, and just loved it. Had a ball, and was very blessed to coach a young man by the name of Heath Slocum. So a lot of folks have heard of Heath Slocum, and he's had a very successful career, and we won the Sun Belt Conference Championship 5 times in my 6 years as a head coach, and I was named the Conference Coach of the Year 4 times. And LSU hired me in 2000. And so this is kind of to date myself. I was at LSU at the same time Nick Saban was at LSU. So I got to spend a couple of years around Nick Saban, which was really cool. Learned a lot of wisdom from Nick Saban.
That's where David Toms is from, no? LSU.
David Toms, that's right.
And you must have crossed swords with a gentleman by the name of Brian Manzala.
I know, not really. We never were in the same circle, I guess, because I was a coach and he was a PGA professional at a golf course. But I know who Brian is. I don't know if he knows who I am. Maybe he's heard of me. But I followed him and I see his stuff, and I respect his teaching quite a bit.
Let's go back to Florida, Floyd Horgan.
Yes.
So you mentioned Scott Gump and Azinger. These are two very, very different types of swings. Yet he managed to steer them to high places.
That's
Could you
right.
share a little bit about Floyd's philosophy and his influence on you?
Well, as I got older and started studying the swing a lot under another great teacher by the name of Ron Green, as I started studying the swing and I look back on it, I think Floyd was one of the first ones that really bought into the golf machine and was teaching the golf machine. But I think he changed his methods several times. So if you think about Paul Azinger, really strong grip, did things a little differently. Scott Gump's golf swing was a little more resemblant of what Floyd teaches. Floyd taught us that there was 2 axes. There wasn't a center axis. There's a right axis and a left axis. And in the backswing, you pivot around the right axis, you pivot down on the right axis, and then you pivot through on the left axis. So we called it right, right, left. It's almost like there's a little bit of Jimmy Ballard in there as well. So interesting that Hal Sutton worked with Jimmy Ballard and Floyd, and they kind of taught the same things. But Floyd taught me to early set it. He wanted me to copy Seve. And I raised my left heel, had big backswing, and I used to raise my left heel. And then, I still teach that to some degree. It's okay for people to raise your left heel, because I think when you replant it, it's like turning on the jets. It's like turbo. It's like stomp the accelerator when you replant that left foot on the way down. And it's a great way to pressure shift from the backside to the front side. And it was really good for me. It really helped me. But he had a way. He had an eye for motion. He came from the baseball world and taught pitchers. He obviously taught golf. He even taught professional basketball players how to shoot free throws. Yes, he's just one of those guys that had an eye for motion and studied it. And I'll never forget the day he took a golf ball and put it in like a little sling and twirled it in a circle and said, "This is the golf swing." And he's basically, what he was focusing on was You know, that as long as I'm twirling this string, that golf ball is flying in a perfect circle around this in this little sling. And if I halt the twirl, the golf ball flies away. Well, that translated into the club head, the golf shaft, and your left arm is the string. The club head is the rock. The club head is the rock. Your left arm is the string. And this is the twirl. Your body is the twirl. If you stop the twirl, that club's flying into the ground. It's flying out of the circle. And so basically what he taught us to do is to continue to pivot and pivot through the ball really strong. Well, one of my videos on YouTube, actually it's the most successful one, is called Finish Like the Pros. And I talk about how to turn left and finish your swing. And so, you know, one of the biggest flaws I see is a pivot stall. Well, he hammered finishing. He hammered finishing the swing. He hammered pivoting through it and finishing your swing with both hands connected and not coming apart. You know, sometimes you'll see somebody's right hand and their finish come off the golf club. Well, that was a sign that the backside never got through the ball. So ever since then, if you ask me, Greg, you got to hit this green to save your life with a 7-iron from the middle of the fairway, my only biggest thought is going to be finish with both hands connected. And that's going to ensure that I finish the pivot properly and get off the backside and finish the swing. So I can't even begin to tell you how much I learned from him. I cannot begin to tell you what a great teacher he is and was. And my understanding is that he is now a fly fishing guide in Bozeman, Montana. He's probably teaching people how to sling a fly rod just perfectly.
How old is Floyd today?
Gosh, he must be mid-80s, upper 80s.
Oh. You know, interesting you mentioned that he taught baseball, and guys who play basketball.
Yes.
I think motion is motion. When
That's
you
right.
look at an athletic motion, you just know.
That's right.
Right? When you see someone sprinting, someone swimming efficiently, it just looks correct. It looks fluid.
Yes.
Which prompts me to say motion is lotion.
There you go. I like that. Well, we studied Nolan Ryan's pitching motion.
Yeah.
Nolan Ryan's pitching motion is one of the most efficient athletic moves in all of sports ever. We also
90 mile per hour fastball.
Yeah, he threw a no-hitter when he was 45 years old. So
And
you know,
also reminds me of another chap by the name of Tim Lincecum.
I know Tim. Yes. How about we also studied? If you remember tennis back then, one of the great tennis players was Jimmy Connors, left-handed. So Jimmy Connors' two-handed backhand for a left-hander in tennis, his two-handed backhand was a perfect golf swing. It was a perfect golf swing. So he had this eye for athletic motion. And man, I know that was a community college. I was there for 1 year. We had 10 kids on the team. Every kid on that team eventually got a D1 scholarship somewhere.
You know, you talk about good eye. I want to ask you, what do you think about how golf is taught today compared to the good old days? Butch Harmon used to say, I use 2 TrackMans, and he points to his right eye and his left eye.
You know what? I have that in me. I'm that old school kind of guy that still uses the new tools. The new tools for me are verification. I've got to see the motion. I've got to hear the sound, and I've got to see the ball fly. Not only that, when I work with somebody, I tell them that everything we do here on the practice tee has to apply to play. It has to apply to play. And if you can't do this under pressure when the chips are down and the money's on the line, then it's not worth a damn. I mean, it's got to hold up. And so I think you have to hear it. You have to know this person and get to know them and their personality and their style. And it's what I call true coaching and not just instruction. So that's why I think I kind of have this unique perspective as, you know, I played at a pretty high level. I coached at a high level. So with me, you're going to get instruction and coaching. It has to apply to play. And I like the new tools. I think they're great for discovery. I think it helps to convince the student that the new move that we're trying to make is the correct move to make. Look, the numbers are saying so. So I'm a little bit old school. But again, the only thing that matters in this game is that box at the end of the scorecard. And if it won't hold up, I don't care what the numbers say.
So flesh out your coaching philosophy.
My coaching philosophy? Well, I coach a lot of tournament players. And so, again, it has to apply to play. And so the golf swing to me is not everything. The golf swing is a tool. The golf swing is a tool, and we need it to be somewhat predictable so that you can go make great decisions, choose great targets, choose great start lines so that you can go play golf and shoot a score. Now, when it comes to score and play, I'll walk you through this, and I get a lot of dumbfounded looks sometimes because I'll tell my students, I said, now hang with me. This is some pretty complicated stuff. And I show them a scorecard, and I say, you see this box right here at the end that says total? That's the only thing that matters in this game. That's the only thing that matters. Now, there's 9 boxes on the front, and there's 9 boxes on the back, and I have this theory that the lower these numbers are in these 9 boxes and the lower these numbers are, the lower that total will be. And I get some of the craziest looks like, duh, of course. Well, what's the lowest possible number you can write on a scorecard? The lowest possible number you can write on a scorecard is a 1, and then a 2, and then a 3. And the easiest place to make a 1, a 2, or a 3 is a par 3. Well, par 3s are huge. Well, what's different about a par 3 than any other iron shot? It's on a tee. What does it do differently when it's on a tee? It goes a little further, it spins a little more, and if you're right-handed, it has a tendency to turn right to left because the ball's in the air a little bit. It makes the club in a more upright-oriented position. Most par 3s are downhill or very front-facing. And so we started studying par 3s. Well, my offense for golf, the opening line would be every hole is a par 3. The object of the game is to make as many 2s as possible from the 3 position. So on a par 4, you hit 1 shot of transportation, and then it's a par 3. And on a par 5, you've got 2 shots of transportation, and then it's a par 3. Where do you want to play your par 3 from? Well, the cool thing about par 5s, when I was a college coach, a lot of coaches would go to the par 3s and coach the par 3s. And I just never did that. I went to par 5s and I went to the second shots on par 5s because you have more options on a second shot on a par 5 than anywhere else on a golf course. The second shot on a par 5 is a free range ball. It's a free range ball if you want it or if you need it. You know, there's more than one way to get to this green in 2 shots from here. You can go 9-iron, or you can blast it up there by the green. But I want you to make a decision that eliminates the 6, the 7, and the 8, even at the risk of eliminating the eagle 3. And I want you to pressure the scorecard into either a 4 or a 5. I call it putting pressure on the scorecard. You make a decision that the only possible number is a birdie or a par. So that's how I teach the game. I teach the game, and then we go back to instruction. Now, what can you do that's going to make you predictable? Is it fade it, draw it, hit it high, hit it low? And I don't care how you do it as long as you know how you do it. You don't have to know how Tiger Woods did it, or Jack Nicklaus did it, or Scotty Scheffler does it, or Xander Schauffele, or any of them. You don't have to know how they do it. You just have to know how you do it when the chips are down and the money's on the line and the pressure's on. And so that's how I instruct and coach.
That is very unique and very, very sensible.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, here's the thing. And Coach Horgan put this into us. There's only one reason to enter a tournament, and that's to finish first. That's why the name of my YouTube channel is Finish First.
Yeah.
That's what I want my kids to do. All of my trophies are in storage. I don't care about my trophies. I want my kids to have trophies. And if you look at my Instagram page, I've got a lot of kids holding first place trophies. And so we, I that's part of one of my programs. I call it Finish First Coaching. That's where we pick a tournament about 2 or 3 weeks out, and we just decide we're going to win. I just convince them they're going to win. And we start preparing for that golf course. We prepare for the last 3 holes, the first 3 holes on each side. And I try to put them in situations. What are you going to do on 16 when you're up by 1? What are you going to do on 16 when you're down by 1? And we start preparing for those situations. And so, my high school kids are getting a lot of, I would say upper level college coaching at a young age. And I'm hoping that when my juniors and my college players go to a tournament, that they're the most prepared, they're the smartest decision-making person on the golf course, and they've got a razor sharp short game.
Wow, Greg, I'd like to chime in on that. I mean, that's when it comes to instruction, I have a big bone to pick with a lot of instructors because there's no symmetry between learning the X's and O's, myelinating your golf swing, and then applying it on the golf course. In that the way that you just stated it is like the most common sense thing I've heard this year. So deceptively simple that those who are listening may hear those words and it might just go over their head. But the point of creating a functional golf swing, like you said, a repeat, doesn't matter what you do. If it repeats and it's predictable, you're stacking the deck heavily in your favor.
Hey, I disagree. Shouldn't the golf swing look nice? Follow some guy on Instagram, rotate, what have you?
Let's look at some of the others. How about some of the other sports? All right, so we mentioned Nolan Ryan, fastball. What about Greg Maddux?
My favorite.
What about Greg Maddux? Greg Maddux wasn't necessarily fast, but he could pitch. And there's a young man playing college football right now at the University of Alabama named Ty Simpson. He's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but he knows how to play quarterback. So it's not necessarily how well do you hit it in practice, how well do you hit it on the driving range. It's how well can you play the game. And you've just got to have the right tools to play the game so that it's basically comes down to decision making and putting or a short game, how do you score at the end of the hole? So my philosophy is like, how about this? I call it my offensive coordinator system. So in football, every Saturday and Sunday, we see a guy on the sidelines. He's got on reading glasses, a headset, and a chart that looks like a Waffle House menu. He's the offensive coordinator, okay? His job is to move the team down the field without penalty and get into the scoring zone and either kick a field goal or score a touchdown, and either of those is okay. And he can do that a number of different ways. He can change his personnel groupings. He can put a man in motion. He could run the ball, throw a deep ball, throw a short ball, run reverses. He can do all kind of things as long as he scores points. Well, that's our job as golfers, is to move our ball from the team ground to the scoring ground and turn 3 shots into 2. That's the guy that wins every Sunday, is the guy that turns 3 shots into 2 more than everybody else.
Well, that's what Scotty does.
Oh, he's unbelievable. And when I did that video, I mean, I got a little bit lucky that was my first video, but that's what was going on. And Floyd Horgan taught me a long time ago that we should always grip the club right here in front of us when it's in its lightest position, not when it's laying down on the ground. And so I started watching Scotty, and I was like, golly, he and I have the same walk-in. And and not only that, he's using a trainer grip. He practices with a trainer grip on a 7-iron. Here's the world's best ball striker that some say might have the best face control we've ever seen. And he's working on grip, fundamental number 1. He's working on grip every single day. And I just think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful that the world's best ball hitter and the best player is always working on his grip.
To that point, Greg, can you talk a little bit about the trend of matchups where, yeah, you got a strong grip, it's okay if you match it up with something else. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that's something you have to study within every player, and that's something that TrackMan can't necessarily decide all the time. I have to have a Flight Scope X3, so I mean, I think launch monitors are. It's kind of like a soft drink is a Coke. It's like a launch monitor's TrackMan. Um, TrackMan can't TrackMan can't identify athletic ability, hand-eye coordination, and movement the way we can see it with our eyes. And so, you know, I am very reluctant to change a grip unless it's functionally necessary. If you ask me what my swing philosophy is, I want you to have the lowest rate of club face closure you can possibly have when pressure is on. So can you keep that club face still? I don't care if you do it with a weak grip or a strong grip. And I don't know if you've ever seen Heath Slocum's grip. Oh my God, he was a four knuckle left-hand grip. Yeah. And I had coaches say, "What are you going to do about that grip?" I said, "I'm not doing anything about that grip. He's an All-American. His daddy's a PGA professional, and he's never changed it. I'm not changing it. I'm watching his ball fly, and he hits it better than everybody out here." So, you can talk about matchups, but every individual is different. Every athlete is carved and moves a little bit different. And that's what I call them. They're athletes. And, and it's a hand-eye sport, but it's still a very athletic motion. And it's what can you do to keep the club face still through the hitting zone so that you have a low rate of club face closure. So I don't think there's anything that you can say is textbook anymore. What's textbook? I don't know. What wins? What's winning? Who would have ever thought that the Scotty Shuffle with his feet would produce the greatest face control we've ever seen? So, we talk about matchups all the time, and how do you deliver it? How do you consistently deliver it squarely? And how can you consistently deliver it squarely when the pressure's on? There is no one size fits all.
To that point, so golf is not gymnastics where you get points for style. Why do you think people are so caught up with how their swing looks and this concept of symmetry? The head's got to be centered, the ball's got to be in a certain position, the feet have to be square, the takeaway path has to be square, can't be too inside, can't be too outside.
Don't you miss the days of Ed Fiore or Curtis Strand and Miller Barber and Don January? And like, if these guys could see these golf swings back, how about Bruce Litsky? Where is today's Bruce Litsky? You're not going to see one unless he is he would have to stay as far away from a golf instructor as he possibly could to be a modern day Bruce Litsky, because every instructor in the world is going to try to change that. And it would take a very special coach to say, you know what? That little inside over the top move works pretty good. I'm not messing with it. And not many instructors can stay out of that, can keep their hands off. And I guess I was blessed at a young age in my late 20s to have a guy that had this big, strong grip that was a 3-time All-American and has won 5 times on tour and got a battlefield promotion, that I never messed with his grip. Why would I mess with his grip? I don't want to change his average. So, and I think social media, YouTube and Instagram and all of the access to information has built this culture of perfection. Like, we want it to look perfect. That doesn't get it in the hole. Doesn't get it in the hole. And I think I have to coach my high schoolers and my college players a lot on this expectation of perfection that does not exist. Tour players only hit 60% of the fairways. They only hit 62% of the greens. They only get it up and down out of a bunker 48% of the time. They're not perfect. But if you're going to play on tour, I always felt like, this was my belief, that if I ever got out there I'm going to get hot 5 or 6 weeks a year and make most of my money in 5 or 6 weeks. I am not going to be perfect every week. And if I keep chasing perfection, I might just chase myself right off the tour.
Boy, how
So,
many times has that happened?
well, I've seen it here locally.
Oh boy.
You know, when somebody's a draw style hitter and then they get out on tour and everybody tell, hey, you got to hit a fade out here. You got to hit a fade out here. Well, you just drawed yourself right off the tour. You know, you're not who you are anymore. That's the guy that won 12 times in college and was a AJGA All-American. And now you get out on tour and you're going to change it. So I think
Speak on that, Greg. That happens more often than people think.
Yep.
that's right. There's so many. They get out there and they feel like they have to mold with what everybody else is doing. And I get it. You know, TV, the networks, when you watch a championship anymore, you're going to see so many shot tracers and you see most of them are left to right. So everybody thinks they got to play left to right, left to right, left to right. Well, if that's not who you are, then don't be left to right. Who you are is probably good enough to get in the hunt 5 or 6 times a year and make most of your money 5 or 6 times a year. So do you want to fit in with everybody else or do you want to win? You know, you have to make that choice. And I think there's numerous guys that get out there and they start looking around and going, I'm not like these guys. They all hit it left to right and I hit it right to left, or they all hit it high and I hit it low. Well, hit it low and play good in Texas. You know, it's okay.
It's like Lee Trevino and Hubert Green.
Yeah, where are those guys? I mean, we could make a list of the legends of the game, and none of them even fit in the same box at all.
Not even
None of
close.
them. How about back then when there was Tom Purtzer? Remember Tom Purtzer?
Oh, yeah.
What a great swing. He didn't win very much. He won a few times, but not very much.
Yeah, he hit it hard too.
Yeah.
He was long. Yeah, I think about great strikers. You know, Nick Price is probably my favorite, and he was a big draw ball guy.
That's right.
And then the opposite is, I mean, today my favorite is Scotty Scheffler, and Scotty borderline hits a slice, and but that's what's natural to him. And I think that what's missing, gents, a lot is taking what a student, a young man, a kid does naturally and just expanding on that. I mean, Justin and I talk about Jim Furyk and his dad all the time. All the time.
What a great example.
Mike should be inducted into the Hall of Fame,
Absolutely.
along with Randy Smith.
For what they didn't do. Not so much what they did, but what they didn't do is interfere.
Well, here's, and there's also a big difference between, I am blessed that I am just old enough that I played a persimmon driver in college. And then now we've progressed in today's modern equipment. Well, golf used to be a spin game. It's not as much a spin game as it used to be. And I will say that for me to hit a draw these days feels like yesteryear's hook swing. It feels like a hook swing for me to make it turn right to left. And so I think when the ball quit spinning as much and the equipment quit spinning as much, we took a lot of natural gifts away from a lot of players.
Well said. I agree. The skills of the players of yesteryear due to yesteryear's equipment was, incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Well, you couldn't get, how about Paul Azinger and Lanny Watkins? What if those two played in the same group today? Like, my gosh. Or the Bruce Litskys of the world, you just don't see it anymore. And I get it. We're building better athletes. They're stronger. They're more swing educated at a young age. They really don't have 5 minutes to make a mistake anymore or to get into a bad habit because they're so closely monitored. But I think at the same time, we're manufacturing players, and we're not allowing athletes to become athletes like we used to.
Mm-hmm. Justin, thoughts on that?
I think it's a case of knowing too much and then not understanding the factors of success, right? You think the golf swing leads to success, then you look at guys like Jim Furyk and like, gosh, maybe you don't need to be perfect. Maybe it's not just the golf swing. Maybe it's the short game. Maybe it's strategy. Maybe it's something else. And I think the problem with the proliferation of social media is you get flooded with examples of what you think are barometers of success. And when we talk about tournament golf, the average guy watching can only see highlights of the swing, highlights of putts. That's all they see.
That's right. So I don't know if I have YouTube TV, and that's kind of like my cable provider these days. And like Saturdays and Sundays, if I don't get to watch the coverage, I'll come home at night and watch highlights. And there might be 43 shots that they're going to show. Here's 43 highlights from today's coverage. 33 of them are putts or short game. It's incredible how social media is flooded with swing, 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 swing. But when you watch the highlights and what wins, it's putting, it's short game, it's wedges. I'll never forget when Jason Day won the Bay Hill Classic 7 or 8 years ago. He hit it in 12 bunkers that week. He got up and down 10 times. One time he didn't get up and down, and then the other time he holed it. He played those 12 bunker shots in 24 shots and one by one. Everybody wants to look at his swing. So, maybe swing gets you in position to take advantage of short game. But I think here, as we sit here today in October of 2025, swing is overrated. Short game is underrated. Pitching and chipping and distance wedges is underrated. And perfection is overrated. Get the ball in the hole, however you have to do it. So,
boy, is that well said. One thing I will mention about Scotty is how good is Scotty's wedge play? I mean, it is a joke how good his wedge play is. Nobody really talks about that.
It's face control.
Oh,
it's face control. He keeps the face so still that he can control the distance better than everybody else. He can move it left to right. He can even draw a wedge when he wants to. But his face control is impeccable. But we go right back to the fundamentals of grip when everybody else is working on transition and pivot and pressure shifting. Like, it's still a fundamental. He is keeping the face still. That face is still through the hitting zone. And basically, I guess short game distance wedges is almost like ball in hand. If you had the ball in your hand, you wouldn't be flipping your hand around all over the place. You'd be lobbing it with your right hand still an extension. You'd still be an extension. And he does that better than anybody. But I think a lot of that success is attributed to the fact that he hammers grip all the time. And he does whatever his body does, whatever his body has to do to keep that face still.
Is that well said?
I'll tell you what.
A little bit. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll tell you what made a difference for me as a coach is I was in my 5th year at the University of South Alabama, and I had this beautiful team. And we're going to these 15-team fields, and we're finishing 6th or 7th. And I'm wondering, like, what in the world? Like, we're the best-looking team out there. We look like pros with the way we go about our business, the way we do our routines, and just you could just tell by the way my team walked down the fairway that that's a pretty good golf team right there. Well, I got frustrated one year. We were playing in the University of Tennessee's tournament in Knoxville. And after 2 days, we were in 7th place. And I'm thinking, there's not 2 teams here better than us. Why are we in 7th place? So I went to the bookstore. I got frustrated, took them back to the hotel after dinner, went to the bookstore. And I was going to go in this bookstore and I'm going to buy something. It's like, it's got to be me. It's got to be me. There's something I'm not giving them. And how to coach golf for dummies. Or maybe it's the psychology of golf. What is it that I'm not giving them? Well, there wasn't a great selection, but I did walk out with Dave Pell's Short Game Bible. And I thought I was going to find out how important chipping and putting was, which I already knew. And about 2/3 of the way through the book, he finally said it. He said, the only part of the game that correlates directly with money won is wedge performance. The best wedge players are winning the most money. And at that time, that could have been Tom Kite, Paul Azinger, Seve, people like that, Calvin Pete. And I went, you know what? That's the part we're skipping. And it's kind of like, when you go in a casino, the best bet in the casino is the one you can't see. The best bet in casino is the one that's not available to you. It's on the craps table when you play the pass line with odds. It doesn't tell you that that's available. You just have to know it. Well, every driving range, there's not a 50-yard sign. There's not a 75-yard sign. The first sign you ever see is 100 and then 150 usually. And so we were skipping those distance wedges. So when we came back from that trip, our conference championship was in 2 weeks. I told my team, we're going to hit wedges for 16 hours a week because it's a D1 level. You can supervise practice your team for 20 hours. And I said, look, my practice is from 1 to 5. I have to leave at 5. It gets dark at 7:30. You can hit all the drivers you want after I leave. We're hitting wedges. We're hitting wedges. We're hitting wedges. Well, the conference championship came around, and after round 1, we're trailing by 2. After round 2, we're trailing by 2. Round 3, all that wedge work hit. We shot 18 under and won by 17 shots. Well, the very next year, guess what? We're hitting wedges. And at little old South Alabama over here, I had 2.5 scholarships, where everybody else had 4.5. My recruiting budget was $192. $192 was, and basically that was 3 rooms at the Hilton as part of a basketball advertising package. It wasn't even real money. We hit wedges and we hit wedges and we hit wedges. Well, if you play in a 15-team tournament and you win it, you just went 14-0 that week. If you finished second, you went 13-1. We led the nation in wins. We led the nation in tournament victories. We led the nation in birdies. And that's when LSU came calling. And then when I got to LSU, they were number 84 in the country. And in 20 months, we were in the top 5. Yes, I added a player, but we hit wedges after wedges after wedge after wedge after wedge. We had an answer for every number. And it got to the place that if I had you for about 6 months, if you had a distance wedge in your hand, it might sound like Tom Brady calling a play in the huddle. It's a grip down 56. It's a grip down slightly open 56, 9 o'clock with a 1-to-1 rhythm. Well, we got so advanced at hitting distance wedges that if we hit one outside 10 feet, we were disappointed. And I think this is an area that all golfers across all levels are too satisfied with an 18 to 20 footer from 75 yards. They hit it on the green 15 or 18 feet and they're okay with it. Well, I think we are gifted enough as humans with a club in our hand that we can control the distance a little bit better than 15 or 18 feet. Now, if you got east-west problems, left and right problems with a wedge, then we need to go back to the practice tee. But we have 14 clubs in our bag for distance control, and these wedges are the area where we can control the distance and get it to 8 feet. This is where Pell said, or this is what we know back then, that on tour, if you make an 8-footer, you pick up half a shot. Well, that means they make 50% of them. So as soon as you get it to 8 feet, there's a 50% chance you just turn 3 shots into 2. And 8 feet's not really 8 feet because you got short and long. So now you got 5 1/3 yards of distance. If you can get it in that 5 1/3 yards from 50, 60, 73, 84, 92, there's a 50% chance you just turn 3 shots into 2.
So what's the practice routine for this wedge matrix?
So first, we have to get beta numbers first. So I do believe in the clock system. And basically, everybody's got a full. Everybody knows their full numbers. The first one we master is the 9 o'clock position. We master
9 o'clock in relation to the club shaft, left arm,
left arm.
the hands. Okay.
Left arm at 9 o'clock. And for most people, that's just a nice full hinge. That's the L shape, you know. So it's master 9 and get your 9. So what we do is we just hit balls into an open area. And we get to where they're starting to stack up and and get into a nice little circle. And then we go shoot those numbers, and let's say it's 55. Then we go out on the golf course and we drop a ball 55 yards, and then we hit a few, and well, is it 55 or 54? We need to know that. Is it 55 or 57? We need to know that, because that's 3 feet or 6 feet, and we want to get it inside 8 feet every time. So then we start building this chart of numbers. And so that you have, let's say you got a pitching wedge, a gap wedge, a sand wedge, and a lob wedge. There's 4. You've got a 9 o'clock swing. Then we teach 10:30, and everybody has a full. You've got 4 wedges times 3 swings. You've got 12 stock numbers now, not 4.
So you got, okay. So
Yeah.
9 o'clock, 10:30, and 12, and full swing.
And full.
Okay.
Now I'm not everybody can stick their left arm straight up in the sky like Davis Love or Scotty Scheffler, right? So sometimes our full is actually about 11. You just need something between 9 and full. I call it, for me, myself, and I just past 9, because my backswing's not as long as it used to be. I've had some shoulder work done, and it just doesn't stretch as far. But basically, I've got 3 swings, 4 wedges. I've got 12 stock numbers. Now we go grip down. I get 12 more numbers. I go grip down slightly open. I get 12 more numbers. I go burner, which is move it back. And I go firm, which is increase the grip pressure, say from 6 to 9 or 6 to 8. And that firm will be an elevated green, a slight breeze, or maybe a bad lie. It just gives it a stronger hit in case you need it. So my guys had a chart. Everybody had a chart with their stock wedges and their grip downs, their slightly opens, and their firms. So basically you had 60 numbers that you had an answer for, specifically for a number. But let's say you've got 61 yards and your 9 o'clock 56 goes 60. I'm not changing that. I'm not going to try to pick up 1 yard by making an adjustment. I just want to make sure I get it to 60. And over the course of time, I just think that anybody that can stand up and hit a golf ball has enough human God-gifted ability that we can control the distance and get it closer than we ever thought we could.
Will that be the subject of one of your future YouTube videos?
Yes, that's. I think I want to do that one as a live lesson, because I could do this one. I could do this one for a long time. This could be a long. It could be a long video, or it's going to be a series. But we have it.
Better yet, Greg.
YouTube.
Better yet, produce a short game video that you can put up for sale. I think that will be very well received.
Well, see, if you watch my turn 3 shots into 2, I basically gave everybody 3 techniques. I gave them the chip putt, and I'm going to make this shot famous. I call it the rib rider. You got to watch turn 3 shots into 2 to learn the rib rider, where basically you just put your elbows at your ribs, you turn right and you turn left on a 1-2 beat, and you can hit every pitch, every chip. You can hit lobs. I can hit a 60 degree that goes 3 feet in the air and goes all the way across the green, and it's in control with that same technique. So it's a pitching and chipping technique, the chip putt, and then the bunker technique. And if you have these 3, keep in mind, I'm trying to prepare tournament players. Like, I need you to have these 3 techniques so you can go on the road and play. And so the rib rider is going to be famous one day.
Good to hear.
So short game, again, you look around the internet, you look around YouTube, you rarely see a putting video unless it's Brad Faxon. You rarely see a putting video. You'll see a few short game videos. You'll see Bob Mayo out there a little bit. And, maybe every teacher or every instructor puts one out there. But if you come see me, especially if you're a tournament player and we work on short game, your homework is what I'm going to call Short Game Project 25 for the year 25. I want you to hit 25 bump and runs, 25 pitches or chips, 25 lobs, and 25 bunker shots. That's 100 reps that'll take you less than an hour. And if you do that twice a week, that's 1,600 reps in 2 months. How good would your short game be in 2 months if you did that twice a week? And it covers all the bases. I don't care how good you hit it, because I don't care what they say. Tour pros are still only hitting 12 greens around. That number has not changed. They're still only hitting 12 greens around. So, and we're never going to achieve perfection tee to green. So you may as well learn how to score.
Amen to that.
It's old school coaching. It really is old school coaching. You know,
we love old school coaching. You know, when we listen to guys like Pete Cowan, Butch Harmon, Claude Harmon, these are some of the winningest coaches on tour, and yet they still teach in an old school fashion, just like how you described. I kind of feel that golf instruction is coming back full circle. Yeah, we've gone down the route of radars, pressure plates, but you know what? PGA Tour average kind of still the same.
That's
Players
right.
are not shooting 58, 59 regularly, despite the advances in technology. We know everything there is to know about the golf swing, but that has not really translated into a lower PGA Tour average. Sure, I get that golf courses are getting longer, but I could also say that equipment is getting better.
Yes. Yes. I wonder, you know, today, if you're a pretty serious 15 to 22-year-old, you're going to have a set of clubs that's perfectly fit for you. Back when I grew up, Dad bought you a driver and said, "Here's your driver." You know, you just had to learn how to hit it. And then you become an athlete and you learn how to go play golf instead of trying to make perfect swings. And I'm glad to see it's coming back to full circle, because coaching is also, well, I'll tell you a story. When I was coaching at South Alabama, we won Augusta State's tournament one year in Augusta, Georgia. Big event. The number one team in the country was there. We beat a lot of SEC and ACC schools. And when I came back, my athletic director wanted to talk to me. He said, well, tell me about it. You know, what'd you do? I called him coach. I said, "Coach, I didn't do anything. I just made sure they had a Gatorade and a Snickers bar and they were having fun because they were playing good. And I just stayed out of the way." He said, "Well, sometimes being a great coach is knowing when not to coach." And I think young instructors are so enthusiastic about communicating what they know that they don't know when to say nothing. And, you know, sometimes the athlete doesn't need a grip change or a swing change. Maybe he needs to learn how to hit a fade or hit it high or hit it low. Maybe he needs to identify how he hits those shots. He needs to know how he does it. So he doesn't necessarily need to change to get perfect. He just needs to know how he does it. And to me, that's old school coaching.
Sounds like common
Any
sense coaching to me.
Well, it's filtered. I mean, and I tell my students a lot of times, lucky for you, I came along at a time when it was a little bit old school. All we had was VHS. And sometimes maybe you ran across somebody who knew how to draw lines on the screen to give you the elbow plane, the shaft plane, and the shoulder plane, or the spine angle and things like that. But I filtered through it. I have filtered through it. And Justin, we mentioned off the air, Ron Green, one of the most highly respected coaches in the country. And if you ever take a lesson from Ron, and I love him to death, and he's one of my best buddies and my mentor, there's a lot of big time jargon. There's a lot of kinesiology. There's a lot of biomechanics in the swinging. And so I was blessed enough that I knew how to filter that down and dumb it down for me. I had to dumb it down for me. So that's, we're taking this really complicated game with all this science, all the biomechanics and all the numbers, and we've got to communicate it to adults like they're in the fifth grade. We've got to communicate it on a fifth grade level so that they can retain it, remember it, and know how to do it.
Well said.
last questions for Greg, Jesse?
No, this has just been a very enjoyable conversation, Greg. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming on and your insights and it is we're big fans of old school. You know, we like to compare it to just common sense and I'll make one comment before I close it out that with everything that we have available to us, how old was Jim when he shot 58? Jim Furyk was what, 48? 47
Can't
or
remember.
48, he won a PGA Tour event. I mean, he missed a putt for 57. Jim Furyk fired 58 out there and won a tour event in his late 40s.
I think it was the RBC, I think. And then he shot a 59 again in another event. So he shot 58 and 59 in two separate tour events. No one else can say that they've done the same. And that includes the pretty golf swings out
Yep.
there.
I
Yep.
want to give you a crazy stat about Jim Furyk, and I don't know what the number is now, but it wasn't too many years ago. The number was 192. 192 bogey-free rounds on the PGA Tour. 192 bogey-free rounds in competition on the PGA Tour. That's phenomenal. Now, think about that swing. 192 bogey-free rounds.
But no one has asked me, hey coach, can you teach me how to swing like Jim Furyk? Or Colin Montgomery for that matter.
Yep.
Right.
Unbelievable.
The beauties of the game. Well, I'm so glad you guys invited me on. I know you were in the Pebble Beach area.
I am. Yeah, I'm in the Monterey Peninsula, Greg.
I've never played there.
Golf heaven.
I have recruited out there when I was in college, or college coaching, but I've never played Pebble, and that is definitely a bucket list thing that needs to. Because I have a 24-year-old son that played golf, and I keep telling him we got to go play Pebble while I can still hit it a little bit.
Amen. Yep. We'd welcome you out.
Hey Greg, I'm so thankful that you spend your morning with us. Can you
Thank
tell our listeners where to find you on YouTube and Instagram?
That's right. On Instagram, it's Greg Jones Golf Official. And on YouTube, it's Finish First with Coach Greg Jones. And I am the director of instruction at Steelwood Country Club in Loxley, Alabama, which is about 30 minutes north of the prettiest beaches in the country that most people don't know about, Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. So I'm here in South Alabama. It's still 70 degrees in late October. I've got a great teaching facility. If you want to come work with me, come on. If not, you can send me an email to Greg at gregjonesgolf.com. I use the Coach Now app, and it's pretty easy to work together. But would love to have you come down and come see me, and let's work together. My goal is for everybody to shoot their lowest scores consistently.
Amen to that.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you.